The Doctor in the TARDIS. Next stop, everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS. Well, technically, still Basement of Solitude because coronavirus. You know how it is. So, but thankfully, I am joined by not one, but two of my podcast worlds today, as my partner in time, Jesse Jackson, is here, and so is my Ghostwood co-host with the most, Xan Sprouse, and all's good with Charles because I'm a happy guy getting to talk to Doctor Who with two of my favorite people in the known universe. So, Xan, welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere.
Thanks for having me, Charles.
You're always welcome. And Jesse, how are you today?
I am good. I am loving Xan's Mystery Science Theater t-shirt.
Right?
Do you like that? Thank you very much.
And I'm now trying to go, if we can do 1 degree of Doctor Who and Twin Peaks, so that that the next time we have Xan, we could have we could do a Doctor Who episode that has characters or actors who share with Twin Peaks.
They do not, but
they do not.
Unfortunately,
you do not.
Trust me, you've tried.
I have looked. Trust me.
Okay.
I did, however, have a really, really tenuous reference to Twin Peaks for this episode.
Excellent.
That when we were in the self-defense dojo, I was really looking for a Bushnell Mullins boxing poster.
Nice.
Nice.
That would be good. That would be good. So, so everybody, welcome. And today here at episode 189, we're talking survival. And this is a notable episode because, hey, it's the last ever story from the original era that ran from 1963 to 1989. And really looking forward to talking about this with you guys because, Jesse, I know that we've been going through our periodic, First Doctor, Second Doctor, Third Doctor, Fourth Doctor, as we're kind of in our hiatus from new episodes. But Xan was, I was able to coerce Xan back into the podcast.
Oh, it's so hard to get Xan to geek out about Ace.
Twist your arm because this story doesn't have Autons, so that kind of rules that out. But it does have Ace.
There's all kinds of Ace.
Yep, exactly. So definitely looking forward to that because Sophie Aldred and the Seventh Doctor, one of my favorite Doctor Who or Doctor companion pairings, and I think this is a fun little showcase for Sophie, particularly in this last story, and you get to see more of her friendship with the Seventh Doctor, and
right.
In this last story. So,
yes,
I'm go ahead.
Step in, Charles, and I'm probably stealing some of your trivia, but
go for it.
I was like, wow, because Charles had told me this is the final classic era.
Right.
And so I'm like, wow, they picked a really good one. But then when you've run down the rabbit hole, this wasn't the last one they filmed. They actually switched things around a little bit because they wanted a strong, not that it was the last necessary Doctor Who, that they suspected it, right? But they wanted to end the season strong. I really liked this episode. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, originally they were going to, since I was going to bring that up in the trivia section, but since you brought it up, they were originally going to air Ghostlight. That was the last one produced, and which is kind of very Twin Peaks-ish in a way.
I actually prefer Ghostlight to this episode.
Right.
I think it's
But
a
you
really
understand
good
why
one.
I
I
said
think.
that, right, Zan?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it is. It does
yeah.
have a kind of a creepy Twin Peaks-ish vibe a little bit.
Right. There's somebody in one of those knobs in one of those
Okay.
dresser drawers. I think.
Okay, nice.
So,
See, I love it. So I get to talk some Doctor Who and I get to talk some Twin Peaks, and I'm very happy. Um, this one was written by Rona Munro, one of the very few female writers on the classic era. But she's the only writer that actually returned in the modern era to write the story The Eaters of Light from the Peter Capaldi era, which we've talked about here on the podcast. Directed by Alan Waring, and this was the fourth serial of season 26 in 1989.
now, Charles, can you remind me and maybe some of our other listeners who might be a little bit like me and not the world's biggest Paul McGann fan?
Right.
What does kill the Seventh Doctor?
Well, technically, it's the Eighth Doctor's companion for the episode Grace, Dr. Grace Holloway, because she's has to perform emergency surgery after he gets shot multiple times. And
see, because I remember,
she's not familiar with his alien physiognomy. Easy word for me to say, right?
Physiology. Physiognomy is for the face.
Oh, okay. I thought it was, for the. All right, we can go physiology then. All right, that's easier to pronounce if nothing else. But
I looked that up after I saw Tom Baker say it the first time.
All right, cool. All right, let's go with physiology then. That works for me.
Because I remember him being on the slab and turning into Paul McGann, but I just couldn't remember how he got there. So.
Yeah, there was a whole big ruckus. I know we're kind of digressing, but hey, Zan's in the house. That's what we're going to do. And
no, I don't think we're necessarily digressing. Like I said, I just we mentioned that this is the last one, but this is really one of the two times we leave a doctor and don't get a regeneration.
Right.
But it's Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann that we don't see their regeneration. So.
Well, we do. Well, we actually do.
We do, but not in their respective series.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right about that. So, even though this is Sylvester McCoy's last full story as the Seventh Doctor, he doesn't regenerate, like Zan mentioned, until the TV movie. And but just because Grace, just wasn't familiar, and she kind of loses her way while kind of running a tube through him, and he dies on the operating table. Whoops.
No. Don't talk on that. You don't know what it might be attached to. So you get in there, there's one heart, there's two hearts, and you don't know what you're looking at, so that's it. Get out.
Yeah. So this story, of course, starring Sylvester McCoy as the Seventh Doctor, and Sophie Aldred as Dorothy Ace McShane. And we get the return of Anthony Ainley in his final Doctor Who appearance as the Third Master. And then we also get Lisa Bowerman as Karra in the story. And she's notable because she has, even though she appeared in this story, she has much more Doctor Who fame for Big Finish Audios because she plays Bernice Benny Summerfield, the Seventh Doctor's companion that kind of follows Ace in the Doctor Who novels from back in the day, and then Big Finish kind of made that even more canon by adding her to their audio range. And she's done a lot of Big Finish audios, and very cool actress. She's also appeared in the Doctor Who Dreamland, the animated special starring David Tennant as a character named Saruba Valak. And she played a character named Beth Parnell in a Sixth Doctor Colin Baker story for Big Finish, Whispers of Terror. So I thought that was kind of cool. Julian Holloway plays Sergeant Patterson, the very interesting fitness instructor. He played the dual characters of Almec and Admiral Killian in the animated series Star Wars The Clone Wars. And he was also in Disney's A Christmas Carol from 2009, the Jim Carrey version. And he was also on an episode of Beverly Hills 90210, which I thought was just really, really odd, and I had to mention it.
Everybody's got to make rent, Charles.
That's right.
That's right. It's kind of random, though.
And it is very random, exactly. Will Barton played Midge, and he played the genie in a Big Finish audio for the Fifth Doctor, Peter Davison, called The Destroyer of Delights, and then another character named Manjot in another Big Finish audio called The Chaos Pool. And we also had Sakuntala Ramani as Srila Govinda and Adele Silva as Squeaks. I just thought I'd mention those. No need to really mention the Expendables because they're like, we don't really get to know them. And they end up getting basically cheetah people food. So, tough break, guys. The only other trivia that I wanted to mention was that apparently Sophie Aldred was going to continue as Ace into the proposed season 27 that never happened but her contract was set to expire in the halfway through that season that never happened. So as a result, the character of Ace was going to be written out in an Ice Warriors story called Ice Time by Mark Platt. And according to interviews with the production team, the new companion that was going to replace her would have been a female safecracker that the Doctor would have taken under his wing, and with her gangster father as a recurring character on the show.
Interesting.
So that's kind of an interesting what if. Now, Platt's story was eventually adapted as a Big Finish Lost Story audio adventure called Thin Ice. And it kind of, what they did is they took 4 script, like the 4 story ideas that they had for that never happened, that season 27 that never happened, and they kind of recorded them for Big Finish with Sylvester McCoy, Sophie Aldred, and an actress playing Rain Creevy, that safecracker character. So thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I as much as I loved Sarah Jane, I would have loved to have also seen an Ace Adventures show or Ace and Company.
I think a lot of us would want that. Especially now that Russell T Davies has kind of sort of established that Ace now as an adult runs this charitable organization called A Charitable Earth.
Yeah.
Right.
And could presumably go off and have adventures of her own.
We could have another spin-off. I would watch it.
I would totally watch that. I would watch that in a heartbeat.
Yes.
So,
And I would love to see any Earthbound companions come back to say hi too, Just anybody who's still around, like even Perry, if she wants to show up and maybe do a couple of maybe about 20 hours of community service, that'd be fine with me.
I love that little polite little nod. Even Perry could come back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and as Charles and I talked about when we were, trying to work our way through class, that there was hardly any connection to the Doctor at all, and there were enough Earthbound companions that were retired that you could have, stretched things a little bit and had a true Who connection in that series. And I think it would have helped the viewers to engage more. I know I would have been more interested. We kind of watched it because we had to, but it wasn't.
Well, we didn't have to. We just felt kind of like, well,
it's your duty as podcasters.
Yeah, exactly. So, we want to give it its fair shake, and we did. We reviewed the first episode because, hey, Peter Capaldi was in it, so it sort of mattered.
Yeah.
And, but not so much. It wasn't that great of a series. So, I want to ask Xan about her opinion about this story in a minute, but Jesse, let's start with you, if that's okay. I just want to get your really quick thoughts on this story, what your reaction to it was.
So I've got a few notes that I'll wait and when you get to the categories, but overall, it's a pretty good story. This is, I think, only the second time I've watched Ace, and once again, I have to remind myself that it is chilly in Britain as they're filming.
Yes.
Because you're like, God, that's a very thick jacket.
Everybody wears, even the Doctor with shirt and vest and coat.
Yeah, I know. I just and growing up in Louisiana and spending most of my adulthood in Dallas, Texas.
Oh no, they're falling.
It's always freaking hot. I always just think about that. I liked it. I thought it was an interesting story. I did not know we were going to get the master.
Right.
The filming in like the way they filmed it does date it as far as I'm concerned. But overall, I thought it was some pretty good stuff. I mean, this was definitely, I had no pacing concerns. I thought it moved along well. It was an interesting story. So I'm pretty happy. And as I said, if this was the final classic episode, they went out on a good note.
Good. Yeah, it's a little shorter than the typical Doctor Who story from the classic era because it's only 3 episodes as opposed to 4. So it's a little tighter, I think, as a result. Zan, how about you? What did you make of this story? Because this was your first time watching this as well, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, this one I had never seen before, and I have some real mixed feelings about it.
Okay.
I think that it has the bones of a good story. I think Rona Munro wrote a good script, and I think that, as we all know, with every Doctor Who episodes, there's about $4 to do special effects.
Right.
But I think with the destruction of the Cheetah People planet, I think they did a good job of using, negative images and just inexpensive camera tricks to be able to make it look like something really bad is going on. Like maybe Krypton is falling apart, but they have way less budget for it. I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah. So this is like blowing up Krypton on a budget.
This is like blowing up Krypton like in your backyard with your mom's camcorder type of thing, but you did a good job with it. But this for me, like I said, I like the fact that we saw the master, and a master who has fallen on hard times. He gets stuck on this planet and he's like, all right, whatever, I'll just rule these cat people. I mean, he still does his master thing in whatever environment he's in, and I thought that was an interesting piece for his character, that no matter where he is and no matter how hard he's fallen, he's still going to be who he is. And I thought that was very cool. But there were some things I did not like about it. And this is, for me, is another classic case of JNT strikes again.
Right.
Where we have a lot of the script was changed because of him. Rona Munro's original vision for the characters was more of a human cat hybrid rather than people in cat suits.
Right. And remember,
so I think,
like you, I looked that up, and apparently she was just really disappointed with the costumes, that because she wanted the actors to be able to emote, and they couldn't do that behind that fluffy, furry masks.
Said that, right. She was expecting sort of spotted makeup and cat eyes, more like, honestly, like Cats makeup, like on stage production of Cats type makeup.
Right.
Instead, they had what she refers to as these Puss in Boots costumes, which I think definitely detracted, because sometimes I had a hard time telling who was chasing who. And then when I started realizing, okay, you got to start looking at their jewelry, and that's the only way you're going to tell these characters apart. There were other certain subtext that I thought would have been interesting, but again, JNT was like, oh no, we can't. He's very, he plays it too safe and too corny sometimes, I think. So I would have liked to have seen this script with, Russell Davis or somebody else as executive producer.
Yeah.
But I love that we got so much Ace. I love that we learned about Ace's history. I mean, I still think there's a lot of questions there, like, what happened in her home life that she goes back and she's looking for all of her friends, but, you're going to see your mom? Yeah, no, not really. So, what is the deal there? So I think it's an interesting glimpse into, her, and even that sort of, people just don't just disappear. You did. Yeah, but that's different. That sort of concept that everybody sort of knows she's gone, but she's not. She's more interested in seeing people and saying hi than letting people know she's okay. Yeah. Unlike a Rose who's like, I just want to go home and see my mom. That kind of thing. So.
And so I had not known. So I had assumed that was explained in a previous episode and they just weren't covering it. So that's kind of interesting that it wasn't covered and that it's kind of left mysterious. So that's kind of nice. Yeah. I did think it was interesting, the whole concept, and not to jump ahead for one of your topics, right? But the idea of seeing your old friends and wanting to do this, is kind of an interesting premise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and you can't necessarily go back to the old coffee bar again, because even if you do,
This used
are
to
your
be a
friends even
coffee
still there?
bar. Now it's gone.
Yeah, or it just sort of reminded me too of like the last shot of St. Elmo's Fire, where the whole group walks on up to St. Elmo's bar, but there's a whole group of new kids in there.
Yeah.
And it's not their place anymore. And I think Ace was feeling that a little bit. Like, not, her friends, yes, were being taken away by the killings to be food for the cheetah people. But even if they hadn't been, things would have changed and people wouldn't have been hanging out at the same places anymore. And it wouldn't have been what she remembered anyway. And I think that's an interesting subtext to any story.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we need to jump into our main topics because we're obviously very eager to talk about this stuff.
We're getting to them already. Yes, they're bleeding into our conversation anyway.
I think we kind of like hit most of the highlights already. So topic number one, I want to talk about the Doctor and the Master, because here it is, the final story of the classic era, and they end it with another clash between the Doctor and the Master, which is very fitting. And ultimately, it leads back to this very, honestly, very tumultuous, very volcanic, to pardon the pun, battle. Literally volcanic battle on the Cheetah Planet as it's breaking up. You almost kind of expected the Seventh Doctor to go like kick the Master right in the face and go, "I have had enough of you," like in Star Trek 3, and when the Genesis planet was breaking up. So, Zane, let's start with you first. What was your take on the Doctor and the Master in this story?
Well, I don't know if this was intentional, but it's how I read it.
Yeah.
Is they came to they came to Ace's neighborhood, and he sees all the cats and everything's weird with the cats, and the Doctor he seemed to know a little bit about the cheetah people, but it seemed to me like it was a little bit of a stretch where he would be, no people, cats, that he would be really sort of honing in on that as much.
Yeah, how was he dialing in on that?
And I think it's because of the Master. As soon as I saw the Master, I actually was by myself and I just went, oh, hell, when I saw the Master. But it explained it for me because he and the Master have that sort of good versus evil, yin yang symbiotic relationship. So if something weird is going on someplace and the Master's behind it, the Doctor is going to have his timey-wimey senses tingling.
Yeah, his TARDIS, instead of Spidey sense, right? His TARDIS sense.
His TARDIS sense, his TARDIS sense is going to go off because the Master. And so, like I said, when I saw the Master, I'm like, okay, this makes a little more sense. So, and I always do like their relationship because there's always that element of the Doctor saying, I'm not going to sink to your level.
Right.
And then there's always the element of the Master almost rethinking his plans, because if the Doctor goes, who's he going to have? Well, because you can't have a villain without a protagonist, because arch nemeses can't operate in a vacuum. They have to have somebody to work against. The Doctor has to have the Master, and the Master has to have the Doctor for them to, and especially the Master to survive, because the Doctor has his wanderlust to keep him going, but the Master kind of only has his vengeance to keep him going. So,
all right, Jesse, how about you? What was your take on these two characters? So,
I have not watched a lot of Sylvester McCoy. I liked seeing him.
Shame on you, sir. Shame on you.
I know. Too much to watch, not enough time, right?
Yep.
Right.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, exactly. So I liked him. I liked seeing him, as you guys talked about, seeing like, hey, what's the deal with the cats? What's going on? When I saw the Master and it appeared he was ill, my first thought was, and I know this is purely emotional and it may not be logical, because Charles would throw out his Charles encyclopedia and go, well, actually, Jesse, but not. But my feeling was, damn, the Master sure is sick a lot. It seems like there's a lot of episodes where he needs to do something to regenerate himself, or he's fighting a disease, and I'm like, he does not practice safe travels.
No.
Like, he does not put protective shields over his TARDIS. He just picks up a lot of space bugs.
He lives hard. He's got a hard life.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
guess
easy.
so.
It's not easy being like a would-be universe dominating maniac.
Yeah.
He's got things to do and can't always take care of himself like he should.
Yeah, I guess
that takes
not.
a lot out of you.
Right.
Yeah, he's not he's not taking his vitamins or whatever. So it was neat to see these two old rivals go after it again, and it I certainly don't. I think that in a lot of ways, our last two classic Doctors they suffered by writing, that they did not have as an opportunity that
is very, very true.
And a production budget, that was non-existent. But yeah,
and also after that many years, there, instead of bringing fresh blood in and like, okay, how do we do this different? So, but you see glimmers of what they could have done with better scripts, a more enthusiastic behind the scene team, a little even more money. But I think mostly a creative team, like a vision of a showrunner that, hey, okay, if you're telling me X amount of money is all I've got per episode, all right, we're going to shake things up and we're going to do things different, and it'll be a different kind of Doctor. But I think it could have been exciting. So that's my only regret, is when I see this, I go, you certainly know that Sylvester McCoy is a great actor, and he's done a lot of good stuff. You just kind of go, wow, I wish he could have done more as this Doctor. But he does rock the umbrella.
Yes, he does. Although if you notice it really closely, like it's a little beaten up by this point after a few adventures. This is his 12th story. It's getting a little worn. Needs a fresh coat of paint by this point. Obviously this story, this is Doctor Who at the end of the original run. So, the budget has been stripped. No support from the BBC by this point. I think everybody's tired of John Nathan Turner at this point and his shenanigans. But to Sylvester McCoy's credit, he gives it his all. He's right in there, trying to, obviously given the limitations of the production, he's still giving, 110%. If that's possible, even though you can mathematically not give any more than 100%. But he's quite the showman, and I think he really relished the idea that getting to finally play off of a major baddie. He had played off Davros a little bit in Remembrance of the Daleks, but here it's the Master, the Doctor's archenemy, the Moriarty to his Sherlock Holmes, and so, to see those two face off, I thought, if Doctor Who was going to give a send-off at this point with just so little left in the tank,
it needed the Master.
They needed the Master, and so I think rescheduling this story as the finale was the way to go, of the four that were presented, and for season 26. And I really like it. The clash on the Cheetah Planet as it's breaking up, and that great emoting from Sylvester McCoy when he does this big line of like, if we fight like animals, then we die like animals.
Yes.
He's throwing up his hands all theatrically, and it's such a great moment. And
it is.
With the Master, he's scrambling at this point. He's stuck on this Cheetah Planet. He's turning into a cheetah person gradually, although he's just relying on his strength of will to fight off the influence. and he's just barely hanging on. And then the doctor shows up, and the master just is like relying on him, like, okay, you're my ticket out of here, and um, tries to get him to the two to work together. And it's only when obviously when Ace succumbs to the Cheetah Planet's influences that they're able to escape. But it just it just shows it it's almost like I don't quite know how the master knew that the doctor was going to be in Perryville at this particular moment. It does seem like a little bit of a convenience for the story, but you got to get these two together somehow. So you kind of have to just hand wave
They have a
this one.
symbiotic relationship. I think they kind of, like
Yeah.
I said, they kind of know where the other one's going to be. But sorry, just trying to give a little validity to your.
Well, no,
to your question.
or maybe just that the master was causing these disappearances and figured, well, hey, the doctor will show up and investigate
Or maybe
this
he
eventually.
picked there because he knew that's where Ace was from.
Right. That's
Or
possible.
something like
And that's certainly possible. So, yeah, just it did work, and but I really enjoyed seeing Sylvester McCoy play off Anthony Ainley, and getting to see Anthony Ainley as the master one last time. It was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
So, all right. Anything else about the Doctor and the Master from anybody? All right. Let's move on. Topic number 2. Let's talk about Ace and Karra. And Xan, I want to start off with Jesse, but feel free to talk about said subtext that you were talking about earlier,
Okay.
because I find that very interesting that Rona Munro kind of wanted to bring that out in the series. So,
hmm
so Jesse, let's start with you. What's your thoughts on this kind of relationship that this bond that Ace feels with Karra, this converted cheetah person?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. There is, and it's hard for me to, as a 60-year-old straight white guy, to say this. I don't want to seem indelicate, but I do think there was a little bit of an affection and subtext between them, and I thought that was interesting, and played very well, especially for 89. They're not going to go too far there. So I like seeing this. I liked it. I liked Ace was not as, hey, let me bring hand grenades. She was less Jane from Firefly this time than in the past that I've seen her. She's been a little more like, don't you think we should have brought hand grenades?
Yeah, she's not throwing the Nitro 9. She's not rocking the supercharged aluminum bat to beat up Daleks this time.
Yeah. And Xan, what I wanted to mention is when you were talking about that her going back to the old neighborhood, and I pulled this up, but it brought back and talk about prop culture, right? Billy Joel's scene from an Italian restaurant, where he says, "Then the king and queen go back to the green, but you can never go back there again."
Right.
And you mentioning that made me think of that line, and I think that's a really that was in the writing, but also in the way Sophie played that was really well done. I guess the important thing, Charles, is the episode made me want to see more of Ace. When the last time we watched it, I was like, the last time was like, oh, she was fine, But this one, I liked her. I liked her performance. I liked the interactions. And I said, oh, okay, this is interesting. I'd like to see more of this character and what else this actress did with her.
I'm pretty sure I can make that happen.
I know you can.
So, Xan, how about you? And obviously, you're a big Ace fan.
Yes.
So you had to love Sophie Aldred getting the spotlight here in this story. And
I did.
So what did you make of her going back to Perryville, and also that bond that she develops in the story with Karra?
I thought it was an interesting bond because I sort of, when we see Karra after she has been relieved of her werecat curse and we see her as a human again, I sort of expected it to be someone that Ace knew from the old town. And she wasn't. She was just somebody who, when she came hunting for her in that playground, they sort of developed a connection.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting that it wasn't.
You thought it'd be more personal.
No, it's not that I thought it would be more personal. It's that I was expecting it, but it didn't happen. So I kind of think it's a little more unique than most of those kinds of stories. Like if after she had not been a cat, like I said, been stripped of her werecatness, and it was She-Ra, that would have been like, oh my gosh, okay, this is why they're connected, because they grew up together or something like that.
They've got
but
history.
Right. This is more of a lightning bolt connection, which I thought was a little bit more unique.
So it wasn't as predictable.
No, it was not as predictable. So I did like that. And Jesse, don't feel bad. That's exactly what Rona Monroe wanted you to think.
Yeah.
She did write a bit of a lesbian subtext into this script, that they had this sort of, for lack of a less obvious term, carnal connection with each other.
Right.
At first glance and at first conflict. And I think, as we've seen before in performances by Eartha Kitt and people like that, feline equals feminine equals sexy. So you sort of had that pre-existing notion about a cat person, even somebody like Val Lewton's Cat People, where you have these sex-crazed cat people. So there is a sexual there's a sexual subtext to cat people that has gone back to the 30s. So I don't think that that's too much of a stretch or anything like that. But interestingly enough, there was some other subtext in Rona Monroe's in her original script, which might suggest even that Ace is not just a lesbian, that she could be bi.
Right. Because
there's a scene where she's talking about what they used to do as kids and how they try to get older kids to buy them alcohol and
Right.
and then just run off with a change or something like that, and so and then there's a scene where Ace says, I'm almost legal, Professor, and is she going to play that like flirty or just wistful, like where's my youth going or something like that? So it could have gone either way, and I think that would have been up to Sophie Aldred to determine that. But again, this episode is a victim of JNT, and we didn't see any of that, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, this is 89, so
Right.
I'm sure that John Nathan there maybe just the pressure that realizing that he probably even though he's a gay man and probably would have been okay with that, he couldn't get it past.
I think that's probably where a lot of his fear was coming from. That if he watched it, it was too,
that he wouldn't get it past the BBC
personal
suits, and that it would just they'd have to cut it, and he's just afraid of losing it.
You say that he's nervous about it. I say he's being control freakish about it. But I think you might be right. Like I said, I mean, it could just be sort of like, no, this hits too close to home. I can't have this on my show. But I did like that they had that connection of prey and predator of, I'm connected to you, but I gotta eat.
Yeah.
And here's how you fix me, here's how you fix yourself, here's what you need to know when this happens to you. So, and she did make Ace a cat person, which made them able to go home, which is my other big problem with this episode. This episode did not follow its own rules. If you have to be a cat person in order to go home,
right.
Why was the master stuck there?
Right.
Because
that doesn't make any sense. Yes. But at least Ace got us home.
Well,
so
it could be because he was fighting the influence so much that he didn't, like, you have to kind of more.
But he wasn't fighting it. He was using it to his advantage to talk to the Kitlings.
That's a good point. I can't argue with that. There's
victim of JNT. Yeah. That's my theory.
It's so easy to blame John Nathan Turner.
Because he's always at fault.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to get into just a little bit is, and the reason I said that I get the story, but I also think it's very easy for the tomboyish character to get stereotyped as, well,
a lesbian.
Yes,
Okay.
they're one
It's
of
okay.
those.
It's okay. We can say
Yeah.
it. We're allowed.
No. I'm implying that, and I
Yeah.
think that is not necessarily true or fair to
Yeah.
to act real people or even characters on TV. And I do like the idea that this possibly, Ace may have been bisexual and open to more encounters. It's not. It wasn't the Doctor Who then. I think now then we've gotten a lot more modern storytelling, and we've been able to expand that and work that, and it's good. But I think I really enjoyed the interaction of the two characters and how they worked on each other.
I think it's funny though, Jesse, that you refer to Ace as a tomboy, because I see her as very feminine with the braids and the tight shirts. And
she's got a skirt on, so
yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to hammer this home or anything like that. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but if you look at somebody like a Perry or a Joe, I don't think she's, they might be a little bit more, maybe a little bit in the case of Joe. But I see her. I always, but then again, I was also a tomboy. So she does way more with her hair than I ever do. So
right.
That could be just my own personal bias. But yeah, I think that's no. But you're right. That is a trope that the girl who is a tomboy is always the lesbian. But I also think that maybe that would have been a good way of, especially like you said, for 1989, for the time. A good way to also explain why maybe Ace didn't get along with her mom, and maybe why she didn't feel like she belonged in her small little closed-minded town.
Like she was an outsider,
more of an
outsider because of her sexuality.
More of an outsider than we thought. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's certainly a possibility. Now, and obviously it highlights how far we've come from John Nathan Turner to Russell T Davies.
Mm-hmm.
In the modern era, they're two gay men, but they obviously approached it far differently. And
Russell T Davies does have the benefit of time,
right?
So which unfortunately for JNT he did not have. He had to grow up in a much more closed-minded era.
And you probably he obviously couldn't be fully open with himself, I'm guessing.
No, which is tragic for him.
Yeah, it is. But thankfully, it just kind of shows that the progress that we've made as a society in that regard.
I hope so.
Well, at least we progress somehow, right? Finally. So
we're working on it. We're working on it.
We're slow as hell, but we got there. At least a little bit.
We're not there, but we're working on it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not perfect, but there has been obviously some progress, and this is obviously a great example of that. How far we've come. I really like Ace and Karra in this one. This story for Ace in a lot of ways is it's basically you can't go home again, and it's some time has passed. She goes back to Perryville after some time. We get just little hints here and there that of her life. We had seen other episodes like Ghost Light. That talks about the house that she burned down, and we know that she was a bit of a juvenile delinquent, and got the Sergeant Patterson.
Don't I know you from somewhere? No, you don't.
Yes, Sergeant Patterson kind of calls her out a little bit, like, oh yeah, you're the one that the police sent home with a warning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
don't I know you from somewhere? Yeah, no, I don't think so.
So she's kind of got a little bit of a rep. But she obviously had her crew from back in the day, but obviously they've been taken by cheetah people one by one. She finally comes across like Squeak, one of this young girl that is hitting people up for money for a benefit, and tries to get some information about where everybody's been at. But ultimately, she's kind of like, it's Perryville is not how I remember it, and it's kind of like because of all her experiences with the Doctor, she's kind of having to close that chapter of her life.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
And doing a little bit of growing up, I think, in the process.
I think so too.
I think so too.
So I really love the fact that, even though it's here at the end, and it's certainly not as much as we would have liked as far as character development, we actually at least finally got a little bit more background on Ace before the series ended. So,
and remember, this was the time where everything resets at the end of the episode, right? You can't do true changing of characters, and so I think they're pushing the boundary as much as they can.
Yeah,
I thought the end of this episode reminded me a lot of the last Calvin and Hobbes.
Yes,
where it's just the two of them walking away, saying, "Let's go exploring."
Yeah,
and that's how this episode ended. I thought that was,
and it's
they're just going to keep going on. Let's go home to the TARDIS. Home is the TARDIS.
Yeah,
exactly.
That is very nice.
Which, unfortunately, we now know that is truer than we knew back then for the Doctor, for the poor Doctor.
Right, and obviously we with that ending, we had no idea that we would be getting more Doctor Who. As far as because I remember back in the day when I first watched this story and realizing that, okay, this, as far as I know, is it. We're not getting any more Doctor Who. We have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
The TV movie was still 7 years off by this point. And
I was going to say, wasn't that 96 or 96?
It was 96. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Trust me, I remember 96 very, very fondly because of having my colon ripped out and rebuilt with 3 surgeries. So yeah, I'm very familiar with this year, just a little bit. But and then we didn't get Doctor Who proper back until 9 years after that.
2005, right?
So we're looking 16 years in the wilderness, basically. Mm-hmm. But it did. Thankfully, this story, it did end on a really great note. And that was basically a last-minute addition. A little bit more trivia here that John Nathan Turner kind of had the feeling that this was Doctor Who was not going to be picked up for season 27, so he had the script editor at the time write that little epilogue or that monologue there for Sylvester McCoy to read to kind of send the series off on a nice note. And I'm really glad, and I'm actually really glad they added that. So
there is a scene where Ace sees a U2. Right.
Yeah, the war album.
That was the best.
Yeah.
Are they still at it? Yeah.
Yeah, and
which is hilarious because of them winning like every Grammy ever in 1987.
Yeah,
and then 1989 being the year of a Rattlin' Hum. That was hilarious.
So, by the way, War has the Doctor's second favorite song, Two Hearts Beat as One.
Ooh, good call.
Good connection.
Because everyone knows his favorite song or her favorite song is Springsteen's Two Hearts Are Better Than One.
Right.
Yeah. I figured you would work Springsteen in there somehow, but
absolutely.
But I feel like I let the team down because I'm the U2 fan. How did I not make that connection?
Exactly.
Well, we just assumed you were saving it for trivia.
Okay. Yeah. But apparently I dropped the ball on that one, so that's on me. All right. Anything more about Ace and Karra?
No.
All right. Really quickly, we could talk. Topic number 3. We could talk the Cheetah People for a little bit and the Kitlings. Obviously, the costumes were, just the main problem, I think, with the Cheetah People and their execution. And, doing some reading, I found out that apparently, like, the temperature was, like, close to 100 degrees while they were filming this. And so it just had to be so excruciating for Lisa Bowerman and the other actors in these costumes.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm sure Lisa Bowerman, like once her character was killed off and she's able to finally get that costume off, she's like, oh, thank God. I'm just going to lay here and my character will die, and I think I might die, too, from heat exhaustion.
I don't care how much money you spend on this. I'm taking this off with a knife.
Yeah, exactly.
And they probably all ran and jumped in that lake where Ace brought the water
the flaming
from.
lake.
Yeah, the flaming
lake. Yeah.
But Sam, let's start with you. So, any thoughts on the cheetah people and as characters, or the kitlings, which basically are kind of like regular cats when they're not being animatronic, and just kind of like lying around doing cat things.
They're just doing cat things. Yeah. I'll start with the kitlings, because who doesn't want a group of cat minions that will do your bidding? I mean, come on, how awesome would that be?
Right.
And I did think when I first saw the first animatronic one, I was like, "Oh, it's Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch." It
Right.
really looked like Salem from Sabrina the Teenage
It
Witch.
really does. Yeah.
So I liked that idea of sort of using Earth cats as your Earth minions. I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty clever. And as for the cheetah people, again, like you said, the costumes were not great.
Right.
But
They look like a bunch of furries, really.
but like furries that can't afford the costume. You know, they looked, like I said, they didn't have enough differentiation with each other. They didn't have enough articulation in the face, so there were issues. But again, like I said before, you start putting cat makeup on someone, it starts to look like a Broadway show. So this is an extremely problematic type of a costume, because then if you have something even more minimal, then you think that it's going to be, you know, Julie Newmar or somebody. So
Right.
it's hard. I mean, this is a really hard thing to do. So one that I know. Did we lose me again?
The Skype seems
Yeah.
glitchy.
I don't know what's wrong with the black hole that is my house. But anyway, so one of the things that the cheetah people and the master show you is that starving people will follow any despot.
Right.
And that's a well-known, documented historical thing, that if you have people who are on a dying planet and they can't get enough food, that they are going to grasp at any straws, including the ones that the master is dangling in front of you.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting thing, that he's able to find the vulnerable and exploit them.
Yeah,
and
the master's the one with those shiny tinfoil balls, and
those tinfoil hacky sacks. That was like, oh yeah, that is for sure what happens on a cat planet. Anything shiny that you throw at them, they're going to be all over.
Just imagine if the master
cracked me up.
Just imagine if the master had a laser pointer.
Oh, laser pointer, or like, you know, some string, giant balls of string or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
String on a stick. Yes.
When he pulled out that shiny hacky sack and threw it, and the cats all went for it, I'm like, that is Rona Monroe had cats, evidently, because that is so perfect.
Exactly. Because Xan and I are both cat owners, so we can definitely attest to this. And Jesse, how about you?
Jesse is too, right?
No, I'm a dog.
Okay.
Actually, we have no pet, but Chris has a dog.
Okay.
The first thing I thought is going back to Planet of the Apes, the movies, classic.
On horseback, because they're on horseback.
The horseback and the riding. I was like, oh, that's a cool image.
Right.
That looks really nice.
We totally ripped that off. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. A little bit of, the kind of, it just was a nice image, and I liked it.
You damn dirty cats. Cats. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so you're right. I mean, the whole it was an actual kind of creepy beginning when the poor guy's trying to work on his car, and and you see the black cat, and that's in films never good. TV shows black cats, and then the kind of
black animatronic cat.
Yes.
Even worse.
Exactly.
I love the fact that they couldn't get a real cat to hiss and look menacing, so they're like, because cats won't do whatever you want them to.
Right.
So they're like,
I think though that this cat,
like,
the animatronic cats,
we're gonna build one. That's it.
The animatronic cats though bore their teeth more than cats sometimes do at people.
Right.
So because they're more like, when cats hiss at people, it's more like get the frick away from me. But when they hiss at other cats, that's when they're like, these are gonna go in your neck now. So
I mean, not much to add on what you guys have said. I thought it was interesting premise. There, the idea of hunting and desire for food, and that's the idea that you're slowly being taken over by this carnal instincts, and that, okay, I have to hunt, I have to survive. We get the great doctor right, like, we can't be animals and out to the sky. So I just was. It was a good premise, and they executed that part of the story well. You can say whatever you want about the makeup, whatever. I mean, you buy the concept. They're cat people or cheetah people, and that here's the circumstances, what we're going to try to do, and this happens. I don't quite understand the magic of becoming cheetah means you can teleport between worlds, but we won't worry about that.
They're
right now.
Alien cheetahs. Thank you.
Yes. Alien cheetahs, rules are different. Jesse, you said something interesting about the carnal need to eat, and that was one thing that I liked about it, about how the master is probably constantly saying, okay, no, not eating me. But that's part of why he's trying to get the food all the time, because they're going to start eating him pretty soon. Absolutely. And he's really got to use his mind control to keep them, because there was a scene where they thought they had food and that got up and ran off, and then they go for the master, and he has to really stop them, because there is that carnal need. And I think it's funny that you mentioned Planet of the Apes, because when I was watching this episode, Chris came upstairs and he's like, "What are you watching, Planet of the Apes?"
That's Planet of the Cats.
Very nice.
I actually said that. That's awesome.
Exactly. But on paper, the Kitlings, they kind of explain them in this really throwaway line. They talk about, like, well, hey, they create this dimensional bridge for the cheetah people so they can hunt prey on Earth, and then that sounds kind of cool, right? But when you just see cats kind of just rolling around in the dirt, in the sun, that it doesn't quite have that
they're
same
up
effect.
there. They're like, hey, we found your food. Scratch my scritchies. I need scratch under my chin. I need some scritchies.
Exactly, right there behind the ear, right there. Yeah.
That's the spot. I'm gonna start licking myself. Yeah. So.
And then they apparently were told, like, they bred the Kitlings, and they had this great civilization, but then they regressed to animals. We're not told why. We're not told how it happened.
Their planet's dying. They probably, a lot of their people have probably died. There's no food. Their planet's about to die. They're just doing whatever they can to survive, and that brings you back to the most base levels of being. Yeah. Food, shelter, survival, and that's all they were capable of after that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there was something to explore there, but it just, they only had 3 episodes, and only so much time to tell what they could. And obviously, there's much more important things going on. So I think a lot of that, that could have been explained was sacrificed and cut, I'm guessing. All right. Topic number 4, really quickly, we could just talk about Sergeant Patterson. Any thoughts? Or Midge, or Shrila, or the other Expendables, as I like to call them, because that's basically what they are in this story. So any thoughts? I'm going to either one of you on these characters, especially the sergeant, maybe, I guess. But
whoever was that, the guy,
the fitness instructor,
the fitness guy, that was just kind of what a jerk. Yeah. You did feel like you were just. Let's put red shirts on them and let's just set up let's beam them down to the planet. So,
because that's basically what they were. Yes.
Well, I think the sergeant, part of his character having some merit was that it showed you how bad it has gotten in Perryville, because he said we do self-defense Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So people are starting to go missing. Yeah. So I think that's why people they don't come to the coffee bar anymore, but they come to learn self-defense. And then
so where are the cops during all this?
Don't get me started, Charles.
You would think that where there's all these disappearances, you would think we'd see at least one cop investigating this.
You would think so, but I mean, it's small town. It's teenagers. They probably just ran away. I mean, we've heard that a million times before. So you've got that issue, and then I think Shrila and Midge for sure were a good connection between Ace and the old gang.
Right.
So there was that, and you needed Midge to be the Master's new human minion to come,
his
to
puppet,
rule. Yeah, to be his puppet. But I honestly, the one the expendable scene that I thought we would wind up seeing more of.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was foreshadowing, were the two guys in the shop where
they're actually comedians, Hale and Pace.
Yes,
yes. British comedians, but they get little cameos as the grocery store owners.
Right, and the one tells that joke about I don't need to outrun the lion, I just need to outrun you. And then the doctor explains he doesn't need to outrun the lion, he just needs to outrun his friend, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that was foreshadowing and that we were going to have a scene with the doctor and the Master and the doctor,
would outrun the
Master, where he has to say something about like the cheetah is the fastest animal on Earth, Doctor. Do you think you can really outrun them? And he just says, no, but I think I can outrun you. And then he teleports with Ace or something. I was assuming that was going to happen, so I felt that became a throwaway line that could have been so much more.
I agree.
And it was a little weird. I mean, that's a great point. Yeah, great point. That's an old joke. Yeah. So I was like, okay. What's the purpose of adding this in there? Is they're going to add something to it?
Well, it's the whole metaphor of survival of the fittest.
Sure, I get that, but I just didn't feel like there was a good payoff to that.
Yeah. Well, it did give Sylvester a nice comeback line to, just kind of like, well, you better watch yourselves, gentlemen, because you might be next, that kind of thing.
Yeah, something. But I thought it would be much more of a. I thought it was more foreshadowing for the Doctor and the Master showdown, but it turned out to be nothing. So.
But yeah, now that you bring it up, I think you're right. I think there should have been more of a payoff to that after setting it up. Yeah, I agree.
Chekhov's joke, right?
Exactly.
Got a joke, you got to,
Yeah, that's the thing. Those are the rules.
You got to have a better punchline, right?
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts about this episode from either of you?
I got my U2 and Springsteen reference. I'm good.
Okay. All right. Zan, nothing else? No. All right.
I just have one. Well, no. Are we rating this episode, Charles?
Well, yeah, we will.
I'll save it for the rating.
All right. Save it for the rating then. All right. Favorite quotes. Anybody got any favorite quotes from this story? Because there's a few in there. I think they're pretty good.
So I hope. I'm going to save the final quote, which I think is amazing. I'm going to save that for you, Charles.
Yay.
But I do love, and this, I think, and this is the only other one I have, but I love this because it shows the potential of this could be some of the cleverness and the great banter of modern Who when Ace goes, Master, who's he? And the Doctor, an evil genius, one of my oldest and deadliest of enemies. And Ace, do you know any nice people? Ordinary people, not power crazed nutters trying to take over the galaxy. And I just love that exchange because you could see Amy telling the 10th Doctor that. You could see, just name your, Rose talking to the 9th Doctor.
Tegan with the 5th Doctor.
Yeah, I mean, it just was such a typical. It was a great statement.
Yeah, any strong-willed companion, kind of calling out the Doctor for all the nonsense that he or she does. I think is always fun. Zan, do you have any quotes? I know you're a quote person, so I kind of thought you might be all over this.
I had the one thing that really struck out with me in this one, where she was talking about how the town is it's nothing but tin cans and stray cats.
Right.
I think Tin Cans and Stray Cats needs to be the title of my autobiography. and I also liked the Karra's blood in your mouth speech. I thought that was
that was good.
That was very, very creepy.
Yeah, Lisa Bowerman did a really good job with that.
She killed it with that. Yeah. So
that's probably why, and I'm really glad that Big Finish uses her because she's a great vocal actress.
Great voice.
Yeah. And she's this is just the beginning here of her Doctor Who career. Obviously, like I liked. There was one line that I thought that was good in addition to the really big line at the end, where the doctor's walking out of the grocery store, and he's like, "I'm sure I've forgotten something."
What, money?
And then Harvey's like, "Oi, haven't you forgotten something?" The doctor's like, "Yes, money." No, it wasn't that.
That was good.
That
was a nice line. Yes,
great delivery by Sylvester McCoy. And apologies, Sylvester McCoy. I'm going to give my best shot at this. There are worlds out there where the sky is burning, the seas asleep, and the rivers dream. People made of smoke and cities made of song. Somewhere there's danger, somewhere there's injustice, and somewhere else the tea's getting cold. Come on, Ace. We've got work to do.
Yay.
I liked that. That was pretty good. It was very ships on fire on the shores of Orion type of a soliloquy there.
Yep, and as we say goodbye to classic Doctor Who.
Absolutely. Yes.
But yeah, I love that quote. It's one of my all-time favorite Sylvester quotes.
It's a great quote.
And it's a great one to end the show on for at least until 1996.
Exactly.
All right. So what's your rating?
Until 2005.
Don't you start.
I'm always going to start.
Yes, I know. I wouldn't have you any other way. All right. So what's everybody's rating? Dan, let's start with you first. What's your rating for this one?
This one for me is a 6 out of 10 saber-tooth necklaces.
Nice. Okay.
And it loses a lot of points for, I think, what it could, because I know what it could have been.
Right.
Nothing against any of the performances, but I think it had a lot going against it with the bad costumes and some of the glossing over of some of the deeper points of the script. But it loses at least 2 points for me because why do the cats howl like dogs?
Thank you.
Why do they howl like werewolves? These are not werewolves. These are cheetah people.
Exactly.
They should be hissing something or making that
or that
kind of noise,
A roaring, yes.
Yeah, some sort of roaring. But why are they? Oh,
Yeah.
What was that? And that I just was like, that's it.
Yes.
I'm done. I was really, really disappointed in that.
Well, apparently the budget was so bad, all they had were werewolf sound effects.
All they knew were how to make dog noises.
Well, you know what? And it was that stock sound effect for werewolves. That you see in like just about every old cheesy movie about werewolves.
Seriously, it's not even like Lon Chaney Jr. quality. It's just it was that was very disappointing.
Yeah, or anything involving Children of the Night. Someone in a Dracula movie.
What music they make?
Exactly. Nice. Jesse, how about you? What's your rating?
So I'm a little more kinder. I think part of the reason is because of cinema reasons, knowing this was the final classic episode. So I gave it 7.5 out of 10 Eyes of the Tiger. I mean, cheetah.
Nice.
Oh.
Nice. So Jesse and I are in sync because I'm a little bit more generous with this one because it's the last story from the classic era.
I know, and it does get points from that.
It's more of a sentimental favorite than anything. Yeah, it's not a great production, but I try to keep in context that this was Doctor Who on its last legs, and just before buckling and falling to the canvas. So I give this one 7 out of 10 hissing animatronic cats.
Nice.
Because
very, very nice.
Love the animatronic cats. So
good. That
do look like Salem now that you mention it. Yes.
They look just like Salem. They just didn't tell as many jokes.
Yeah. All right. So we're running a little long, and I know we still have got some viewer or our feedback to go through. So I'm just going to really quickly reverse the polarity as we reverse the polarity and then reverse it back again to the modern era. I'm going to recommend, if you liked survival, why don't you check out New Earth, the first episode from Series 2 in 2006, written by Russell T Davies, speaking of which. And in this story, this was where the 10th Doctor, in his only like second story, takes Rose Tyler to the year 5,000,000,023 in the M87 galaxy, where after the destruction of the Earth, humanity has settled on this world named, guess what, New Earth. And he gets summoned to this hospital in New York, and there he meets several humanoid feline nuns. And that's the big connection here to survival, is that we have some feline characters of the Sisters of Plenitude who are overseeing these patients that turn out to be, we find out that they're being used by the sisters as essentially, like they're just flesh, but they're being used, they're being given all these diseases, and that's so that the sisters can come up with cures. And meanwhile, one of the Doctor's arch enemies from the 9th Doctor era, Lady Cassandra O'Brien, moisturize me.
The greatest.
Moisturize me.
The great Zoe Wanamaker, who I love.
Exactly. So she makes her return here. She takes over, basically projects her consciousness into Rose Tyler's body, takes over Rose's body. And so, Billy Piper having a lot of fun as Cassandra. And ultimately, Cassandra finds out what the Sisters of Plenitude are doing and is demanding payment in exchange for keeping everything on the down low. But the sisters refuse, so Lady Cassandra opens up all the tubes and lets all the diseased people run amok in this whole zombie riff. And the Doctor ends up coming up with a solution by grabbing just about every medicine he can get his hands on, throwing it into this spray shower that rains down all over them, and magically they're cured of their diseases, and the threat's over. But Lady Cassandra is forced out of Rose's body. She ends up going inside Chip, her sidekick, and ultimately the Doctor, she realizes she's about to die, so the Doctor, in kind of this act of mercy, takes her back to meet her younger self, whom Lady Cassandra gets to tell that, oh, how beautiful you are, and then she dies in her younger self's arms. And
Charles, can I ask a quick question about that episode?
Sure.
Is that our first or second introduction to the face of Bo?
This would be the second. Okay.
Couldn't remember if it was the first or second. Yeah, can I piggyback off of your reverse of polarity?
Sure, go right.
And unfortunately, I cannot remember the name of the episode because I wrote it down and I forgot where I wrote it down. The traffic jam episode.
Gridlock. Yeah,
Gridlock. Thank you.
Because you had Brannigan, the cat.
Brannigan, who is one of my favorites ever.
How can you not love an Irish cat person?
The fact that he's a little bit of a homophobe detracts some points from him.
Okay.
But he's still pretty awesome.
Is he in real life? I hope that's not the case.
No, remember when they none of that modern talk. I'm an old-fashioned cat. He doesn't want to hear the lesbian couple talk about their marriage.
That's right.
So I mean, he's tolerant, but in that sort of just don't make me look at it kind of a way.
I just I was just worried that we were going to cancel the actor that played Brannigan because
no. Just Brannigan.
Everything going on these days.
If you could have a straight white male cat, I think it would be Brannigan. But he's that sort of don't make me look at it tolerant. So
I'm guessing Brannigan's an Irish Catholic cat.
Probably.
That would be my guess. Yeah, I don't think he's Irish Protestant. I think he's Irish Catholic. All right. So listener feedback. We have 2 this time, once again, from Holly Mack and David K. Proctor. So Holly Mack from the 5-ish Fangirls podcast, writing in once again. And so Jesse, do you want to read Holly's or do you want to read David's?
I'll read Holly's.
Okay.
You
always pick Holly.
Okay, I'll do.
No. I'm just teasing. Go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just teasing.
I can do David just as easy.
Go for Holly.
Okay.
That's what she said.
Yes.
All right. Giggity.
Giggity.
It's because I always like making the joke. Because she always lists who's here, and they're way back when they used to do facts fodder in the sports talk show that I used to listen to, they would always go to Mike and Greg, and they would always say, that would be us. And so I always make that joke with Holly because she always mentions, and I will do that now. Hey, Charles, Jesse, and Xan, that would be us.
Xan gets a shout out. All right.
That was an interesting episode. Who would have thought that the Master could use a cat as a familiar to see what's going on? I can see the Doctor's concern for Ace and her feelings after what they found out what's starting to happen with Midge. And then at the end of the second episode, when the cheetah person she helps shows up and Ace has cat eyes.
Dun, dun, dun.
The Doctor's faith in Ace and her being able to fight the cheetah call, I think, was all that Ace needed to be able, all she needed to be able to regain control of herself. The Master bit off a little more than he could chew with the cheetah power, and the Doctor is also in danger when they head back to the cheetah planet. The Doctor somehow makes it back unscathed to Perivale? Is that how are you?
Perivale, yeah.
Perivale, yeah. The ending with the Doctor, come on, Ace, we got work to do, makes me smile. Two hunters, yes, I'm referencing Supernatural, as the Winchester brothers used that same line of we've got work to do quite a bit, in a way with all the things the Doctor listed that they can fix or help those that need it. I'm so glad there's numerous 8th and 7 Doctor adventures to listen to in Big Finish. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you, Holly. As always, it is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, we always love hearing from you, Holly, and try to get you back on the podcast here shortly because we always miss you. We always think we always enjoy having you talk Doctor Who with us. We also had David K. Proctor writing in once again about survival this time. He says, when I first saw the Sarge giving the wrestling lessons to the boys, I got a strong crease from the Karate Kid 1984 vibe. In the initial meeting with him and the
Cobra Kai.
He's
Cobra Kai.
In the initial meeting with him and the Doctor, the Sarge says that one finger can be a deadly weapon. This reminded me of Sean Connery in The Presidio from 1988. Sean Connery. Initially, the story seemed a lot like my own experience after living my whole life in a small rural town, and after the army, returning to find it wasn't as much fun as I had remembered. That's about everybody like me that grew up in a small town. Just saying, personally. This was, of course, before the cat surveillance and disappearances, and then a humanoid jungle cat on horseback. Let go of me, you damn dirty cat!
Very nice.
The Master. If this is going to be your last story for years, you must have the Master. I guess this rule carried on to the TV movie as well. Yep. Only with sunglasses. The Master, I don't feel like any effort was made to make the other place look like a foreign world beyond the odd moon. I guess they were pretty broke at this point. Oh yeah, definitely. Magic or cursed water. It is amazingly clear. It looks muddy in the distance, and I imagine swarms of giant superpowered bugs. Perhaps there are no bugs on Catlandia. I never did hear what it was called. It's called the Cheetah Planet because that's all we had budget to name it.
I like Catlandia better, though.
Catlandia is better, yeah.
Yes.
Kind of like Portlandia, you know.
Yes.
The dream of the cats is alive in Catlandia.
Yes.
Is Cal McLaughlin the mayor of Catlandia?
God, I hope so.
Memories. I'm sorry.
There you go.
All right. I must express my admiration for the actors running around in those cat masks. Wearing a mask nowadays makes me aware of how miserable that had to be, especially while running.
For real.
And especially in 100-degree heat, like I was talking about.
Yeah.
Weak plot, no wrap up of character arcs. This must not have been a planned last episode. I see why their ratings were low. I thought it was fine in 2020, but I'm doubtful that it could have gotten me hooked in 1989. I give it 7 saucers of milk. Thanks, David K. Proctor.
Good one.
Good job.
Yep,
Very nice, David.
Thank you, David. So,
so Charles.
Yes.
We heard from 2 people.
Yes,
but
we did.
There has to be a way for people to reach out and give us feedback on what they think about the episodes we're reviewing. How could they?
As always, you are all kind of adorbs. All right. So if you want to be like Holly and David, and hey, who doesn't, right? drop us a line at nextstopeverywheresmg at the gmail.com. The Gmail. So that's nextstopeverywheresmg for Southgate Media Group at gmail.com. Or you can reach us on Twitter at nextstopsmg on Twitter or on Facebook. Hey, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, or Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere podcast. So please like and follow us there. We definitely appreciate it. And let everybody know that you're doing that, because that'd be cool and help get some eyeballs our way. That'd be great. So, Xan, I'm guessing that you have one or two podcasts you'd like to promote.
Yeah, I suppose I probably do have that.
Hopefully.
You can hear me on a regular basis on Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with the amazing Charles Skaggs, and on the Gold Standard podcast, the Oscar movie podcast that I do with DJ Nick and Rachel Friend, which we will be having we're recording a new episode tomorrow. And if you want to talk to me, you can reach me through the various Facebook and social media outlets for those two podcasts, or I can be found on the Insta and the Twitters as Udinax19 or just Xan Sprouse on the Facebook.
Yeah, please follow her, because she's awesome. So you know that if you listen to her here or on Ghostwood or Gold Standard, you already know this. So everybody support Xan, because she's great. We love her.
Thanks, Charles. I try.
Yeah. So Jesse, how about you? Where can you reach you on the interwebs?
Well, I also do another podcast with Charles. I actually do two.
It's not a competition, guys.
No. It's just that's how much fun we do. Xan and I need to start doing a podcast together.
We have talked before about doing a music podcast together. We should totally do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We are currently in the middle of talking Stargirl, the absolutely wonderful DC Universe and CW show on Phantom Zone podcast. By the way, a lot of people sent out that you should be watching Watchmen, and that was available free over the past weekend.
Yes, it was. I shared that.
If you ended up if you watched The Watchmen, and you're like, wow, I would have liked some insight, if you go back to old episodes of Phantom Zone, you can hear Charles and I break down every episode. And if I do say so myself, I think we did a pretty good job.
I think we did. And everybody check that out. That would be great. We had
you should, and if you do listen to that because you watched it when it was free, you need to contact Charles and Jesse just to let them know who watches The Watchmen.
Absolutely.
I see what you did there.
See what I did there? I never fail to make that stupid ass joke.
I love that joke. Then coming up this week on DC Universe, Doom Patrol Season 2 is coming back. So that means that Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, will be reanimated.
Reopened.
Will be reborn. And we will be talking about that coming up. Then staying on our comic book theme, this week, actually yesterday on Set Lusting Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast that I do, I had Ron Martz on, and not only did we talk a little Springsteen, but we talked about the great Denny O'Neil and shared some stories about his passing and his interactions with him when he was taking over Green Lantern. And I have Stephanie Phillips, writer of Artemis and the Assassin, Descendant, Kicking Ice, on the show tonight after we finish here. I'm recording her. But I don't just talk to comic book writers. I talk to people from around the world who are Bruce Springsteen or music fans on Set Listing Bruce. Please check that out. Charles, when you aren't podcasting with the two of us,
yes,
what else do you do?
Well, hey, of course, I'm at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things. Got to do the thing.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. Where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here in Next Stop Everywhere, including Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, all kinds of comic book sci-fi news, news of my other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media, including the aforementioned Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Xan, and the Phantom Zone podcast that I do with Jesse, and Titan Talk, the Titans podcast that I also do with Jesse. So, and then whenever anybody else lets me on their podcast, I do those as well. And lots of fun. Like I was just on Set Listing Bruce talking music with Jesse, and that was a lot of fun. I hope everybody got a chance to listen to that. And then hopefully, eventually, like 3 years from now, hopefully I'll be on Gold Standard talking The Godfather eventually, maybe.
Yeah, we got some time. We're about to do 1929 this week.
Yeah, so we gotta wait. Got a little
Charles
bit of a
wants
wait
to do
on that one.
1974.
Well, and
Got a little bit
see,
of a wait on that.
I reached out. There are certain episodes, and I know there are going to be people screaming, but like I sent them immediately to Nick. Like, okay, can I get Casablanca? Can I get Casablanca?
You stole Casablanca from me. You.
That is by far, if I had to pick a favorite film, it would be Casablanca. I rewatched it just a few weeks ago and was amazed at just the beauty of that film again. So
you must have been like on that like a laser. You must have like
I
pounced on it like going after tinfoil balls. Mm-hmm. Like the cheetah people going after tinfoil balls in that one.
Yeah. So what I'm hoping to pick songs that I have. Movies that I have a personal connection to, or that it really mean a lot. Like Ordinary People, I don't know if a lot of people want to talk about, but there's a lot about Ordinary People I love. So anyway,
that's cool.
Yeah, I love. Yeah. I'm excited to talk about Ordinary People, frankly. So
yeah,
that'll be everybody kind of grabbed everything, and it was. But
because they know how fast it goes. So yeah.
I talked Chris into coming on as a guest for Argo to talk about.
That's
nice.
Cool. To talk about the Jack Kirby connection to Argo.
Oh, that's excellent.
That's really nice. Oh, I definitely, that'll be fun.
Yeah,
you got some time, so.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we can just sit and wait for our turns, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so everybody,
listen to the other episodes while you're waiting.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed, absolutely.
That's the great thing about podcasts. You can listen while you wait, right?
Yep, that's right.
So everybody check out Gold Standard for that reason alone. It's a great podcast. I really loved the first episode. Can't wait to hear the second. So looking forward to it. All right. So next time on Next Stop Everywhere, episode 190, getting close to 200. Might have to start thinking up ideas. So if you got any suggestions, you know where to email us. Just saying. But at episode 190, we jump to the Paul McGann era, and we've already talked the TV movie, but next time on Next Stop Everywhere, we're going to talk The Chimes of Midnight, as I'm holding it right here in my hot little hands. The Big Finish audio adventure, the classic. For
those of you young people, that was the sound of Charles tapping his fingers on physical media.
Exactly, yes. Exactly. Once upon a time, back when before electricity or whatnot, we had these things called CDs, and we liked it. Where you had these little shiny discs, and you recorded things on it.
And they looked like rainbows, and you could see your face in it, and that's all we had, and we liked it.
You could fling them around the room like frisbees. Anyway, so but yeah, so I've got this classic story. It's one of Big Finish's most well-received, well-regarded stories from the, especially involving Paul McGann's Eighth Doctor. It's a great classic one where you have the Eighth Doctor, and his companion Charlotte Charlie Pollard, Edwardian adventuress, eventually going to this house. So you have like a haunted house on Christmas in 1908, and Doctor Who-ness ensues. And I'll just leave it right there. It's a great story. If you haven't listened to it, especially you, Xan, because you always kind of ride me about Paul McGann and the Eighth Doctor.
He's fine in the audios. He's fine in the audios. I just did not like that movie.
All right. Well, that's fair enough.
Which I should give another chance. I haven't watched it in 24 years, but
yeah. Well, if we can ever hang out, we could always put that up on your projector and throw it on the
house projector. Let's cue that up on the house projector.
I would totally do, because I got my copy. I could bring it right over.
Can I MST3K it? if I wanted to?
If you want
Absolutely.
to. If you
All
want
right,
to.
thank you. I have Jesse's permission, so I'm going to do
Yeah,
it.
you do. There you go.
Yeah. So
Yes.
and a little side note, so Jessie said that Xan is wearing her Mystery Science Theater shirt. Jessie's got a Doctor Who shirt. I've got my official Next Stop Everywhere shirt on.
Nice.
So I'm rocking that. So I thought I'd mention that. But Chimes of Midnight, we do have a special guest companion. Joining us once again is Hannah Scarappa, one of our favorite special guest companions here on Next Stop Everywhere. And she'll help us talk Chimes of Midnight, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And just to give everybody a heads up, that's going to be in 2 weeks that we'll talk Chimes of Midnight, because next week is my parents' wedding anniversary. So I'm going to be celebrating that with them. So I appreciate everybody's patience on this one. But unfortunately, our internet connection crashed. So I'm having to record this solo. So thank you, Xan, once again for joining us here on Next Stop Everywhere. Thank you, Jessie, as always, for being my partner in time. And then everybody, come on back in 2 weeks as Hannah Scarappa joins us to talk the Chimes of Midnight right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.